Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. This is the program that includes the timbrel and the pleasant harp. Did you find yours and bring it today? So today we're looking at Psalm 81, verses 4 through 7. Yesterday, we saw that there was a celebration going on. They were singing and joyful noise-making, and timbrels were banging, and pleasant harps were playing, and psalteries and trumpets were blowing, and it was the new moon and a solemn feast day, and it was all very exciting. And now today we come to verse 4. We still got our pleasant harps in our hands. Let's read verses 4 through 7. For this was a statute for Israel, and a law of the God of Jacob. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not. I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were delivered from the pots. Thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Meribah. Selah. All right, so verse 4 tells us that this was a statute. What's the this there? We actually have two thises. We have this number 1 in verse 4 and this number 2 in verse 5. And remember, things always come in pairs, right? The Cat in the Hat always had thing 1 and thing 2 under his hat. Well, this is apparently come in pairs as well. We have this number 1 in verse 4. This was a statute. So that points up to the first 3 verses. The singing, the noise-making, the psalm singing, the timbrel, the harp, the psaltery, the trumpet blowing. All of that was a statute, and that was to be done on the day of the new moon on the feast days. We understand that what we have in verses 1, 2, and 3 is because God had appointed something for Israel. This was a law of God for Jacob. And then we have this number 2 in verse 5. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony. Okay, so if I'm going to give a testimony, what am I testifying of? It's always something in the past, right? Or it's about something in the present. I'm testifying about somebody's character, or I'm testifying about what I saw. In a court of law, the witness is very important because he or she establishes facts. Well, here we have testimony, establishing a fact. And what's the fact? The fact is that God did something in Egypt, and now we're going to learn about that thing in Egypt. He ordained this, that is, all that joyful stuff up in 1, 2, and 3, as a testimony because God had delivered his people. When he went out through the land of Egypt, now you notice between Egypt and the very next phrase, we have a shift in the pronoun. We're talking about he ordained, and when he went out, and then suddenly we go from that, the second person, to the first person, where I heard. So, rather the third person, singular, he, to the first person, singular, I, where I heard a language that I understood not. And then count the number of times you find the word I here. I heard, I understood, I removed, I delivered, I answered, I proved. This is God's work. He is doing something in Egypt, and we have Egypt all over again, right? We know this story. I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were delivered from the pots. Thou called in trouble. I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Meribah. Go back to Exodus chapter 17, verse 7. And you'll find out about the waters of Meribah, where God proved the people. So we've had Egypt quite a bit. We had Egypt in Psalm 78. We had a lot, and there was a lot about Egypt in Psalm 78. And then we just had Egypt, the vine parable, in Psalm 80. So now we're told here that God's doing a work in Egypt, and that's why we have this celebration. We were told in 78 that Egypt was something we shouldn't forget, and we were told in 80 that the vine once prospered, but now it's not. So here we're reminded again of Egypt. You think there's a pattern? I think so. I think he wants us to remember what he's done, and remember that all the things that he has given to Israel and to the church are because of what he did in deliverance. He wants them to remember that. He points to that. Even the very music that they're playing on their geteeth speaks of God's delivering work. Okay, join me again tomorrow. We're going to hit on verses 8, 9, and 10 on Daily Dose Radio. Hey there, friends. Just wanted to remind you to go out and get yourself a copy of my new book, Christianity to the Life, by Cotton Mather, edited by me, David Smith. You can find it at Amazon. It's a paperback. It's also in Kindle form, so you can get it for your Kindle or you can get it for your library at home, however you'd like to have it. If you do, I really would appreciate if you would write a review after reading it. Let me know what you think. And it's a really good book. It'll encourage your Christian walk with the Lord. So go out and get Christianity to the Life today on Amazon. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.